Can the body learn illness the same way it learns health? Now, this question may sound strange at first, but think about it carefully. If the body can become conditioned to stress, fear, pain, fatigue, survival, then maybe the body can also become conditioned to safety, energy, joy, strength, wholeness. And this is exactly what her transformation began revealing. Because for years, her body had memorized suffering, autoimmune illness, inflammation, exhaustion, pain. Her nervous system woke up every day expecting struggle. Now, eventually, the body itself became emotionally conditioned to survival. And when survival becomes familiar, the body begins reproducing it automatically. Now, this is one of the deepest idea in mind-body healing. The body learns through repetition, not just mentally, biologically, emotionally, neurologically. Now, think about emotions carefully. Every emotional state creates chemistry. Fear creates chemistry. Stress creates chemistry. Hopelessness creates chemistry. Anger creates chemistry. Now, if those emotions repeat every day for years, the body starts adapting to them. The nervous system memorizes them. The cells respond to them. Hormones respond to them. Genes respond to the environment created by those emotions. Now, eventually, the body starts expecting the same emotional future repeatedly. Now, this is why many people unconsciously remain trapped in familiar suffering. Not because they consciously want pain, but the body has emotionally memorized it. Now she slowly began doing something different. Instead of emotionally rehearsing illness every day, she began emotionally rehearsing health. Now, this is a massive shift because most people wait for healing before allowing themselves to feel elevated emotion. They say, I will feel joy when I heal. I will feel peace when symptoms disappear. I will feel grateful when life improves. But Jennifer began reversing the process. She started practicing elevated emotions first. Now, why is this important? Because the body responds to emotional states immediately, not someday, now. Now, during meditation, she imagined herself healthy, strong, alive, free. She imagined moving with energy, breathing easily, living fully and emotionally. She allowed herself to feel those states deeply. Now, understand this carefully. The brain does not fully distinguish between an emotionally real experience and an intensely imagined emotional experience. Now, when emotion becomes real enough, the body begins responding. Now, this is where biology starts changing because elevated emotions create a completely different internal environment than survival emotions. Stress chemistry signals protection, emergency, survival. But elevated emotions signal growth, repair, connection, possibility. Now think about the difference between fear and gratitude. Fear contracts the nervous system, gratitude expands it. Fear activates survival pathways, gratitude creates coherence. Fear tells the body, danger. Elevated emotions tell the body, you are safe. Now now, healing requires safety because the body cannot deeply restore itself while emotionally preparing for danger every moment. Now, over time, her body began responding to these repeated elevated states. More energy appeared, more movement appeared, more resilience appeared. And something remarkable happened. Her body started tolerating foods again, foods that previously triggered severe reactions. Now, this may seem small to healthy people, but for someone trapped in chronic illness, that is life changing because illness shrinks life, symptoms shrink freedom. Fear shrinks possibility. Now her world began expanding again. She walked farther, moved more freely, used less medication, felt stronger emotionally, and eventually she started physically training again. Now, this is extraordinary when you remember where she started. A body exhausted by inflammation, a nervous system trapped in survival, an identity built around illness. Now, slowly, a completely different biology emerged, and this is where science becomes fascinating. Genes are not a static destiny. Genes respond to environment, and your internal emotional environment matters too. Now, this does not mean positive thinking cures everything. Positive thinking cures everything. That is an oversimplification. But emotional states absolutely influence biological signaling. Now, elevated emotions affect stress hormone, immune activity, inflammation, brain coherence, nervous system regulation. Now think about this deeply. If chronic stress can make the body sick, why is it difficult to believe that chronic coherence might support healing too? Now, she repeatedly conditioned her body to a new emotional fear, and eventually her body began reflecting that new future physically. Now, this is what reconditioning really means. Teaching the body a different emotional state so repeatedly that the new state becomes more familiar than the old one. Now, most people unconsciously rehearse their stress, their limitations, their symptoms, their fears every single day. And the body keeps reproducing those familiar patterns. But she began rehearsing strength, energy, freedom, possibility, health again and again and again. Now, over time, the body started learning that reality too. Now, perhaps one of the most important part of healing is this: the body believes what it repeatedly experiences emotionally. Now, this is why elevated emotions matter so much. Not because they sound spiritual, but because they create a different biological signal. Now, think about your own life. What emotional state are you rehearsing every day? Stress, fear, pressure, hopelessness, or possibility? Because whatever emotional state becomes familiar, the body eventually begins calling normal. Now, her transformation teaches us something profound. Healing may not begin when the body becomes healthy. Healing may begin the moment the body finally experiences what health emotionally feels like again. Because the nervous system listens constantly, and over time, the body becomes a reflection of the emotional environment we repeatedly create within ourselves.